So in exploring this, I looked at this video and watched several others online just to kind of get a sense of what you can do with this tool. And I was really amazed. So as broadcast journalists, you're always looking to kind of define the scope of things, right? We're looking for exciting visuals. We're looking for fresh angles. You know, when you're trying to get a wide shot, this is the widest you can get, right? This is, you can really get, these drones will go up to 500 feet in the air, and you can get them up to about a half mile away from your person. Although the current rules right now say that the drone should always be in sight of the person that's using it. They have a pretty incredible range. They can travel high speeds, 30, 40 miles an hour, if you really get them going. You don't want to do that. But we have been playing with this drone, which is one of the top models. This is a DJI Phantom. I believe this is version 3. And it is fairly durable. I know because I have crashed it into a variety of settings. All right. I've crashed it outdoors, I've crashed it indoors, I've crashed it just about anywhere you can crash it. And so far it has kept a licking and keeps on ticking. The camera that's attached to it is an HD camera, and it's on a gimbal. And so the image that you get is super steady with, even though the drone may be traveling at 20 or 30 miles an hour and stopping in one direction and going back the other way, you do not see that in the video. The video remains incredibly stable unless you're adjusting the camera, which I do a little bit more than I should. But it's suspended here to where even at top speeds, it doesn't move around a lot, and you get to control exactly what you're looking at. So that's the machine, and you control this with this remote control. And it has a range extender, and you're able to, the drone itself has a built-in wireless network. And so when you turn the drone on and you turn on your remote and your connector, then you can connect this drone to your smartphone. So it has a carrying clamp right there. And I can log into the Phantom network that is connected to my drone. And then I have on my smartphone exactly what the drone is seeing. And I can see it in real time, exactly what I'm filming. Then once you get it taken off, and we're not going to actually take it off, we had discussed for this session possibly just setting it down here and showing you how to turn it all on, and then just firing it up and maybe going up a couple of feet. But it has a GPS sensor in it. And so when you take off from the ground outside, you actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, yeah, you rotate it, but you lock it into place, and it records the GPS coordinates of the piece of ground that you're sitting it on. And then if at any point during flight it loses connection with the control, then it will, or if the battery is going dead, it will return automatically to the spot that you took it off from. It's pretty incredible. And so then the way that the GPS works, if you're outside and you're flying it, then like if I try to elevate it, and I have a little sensor on my screen that tells me what the elevation is. If I elevate it to 200 feet and then let go of the joystick, it'll hover. It'll move around a little bit because of the wind, but it will pretty much hover in that exact spot at 200 feet until I tell it to do otherwise, because it's registering with the GPS signals that it's getting. Well, indoors, it does not get those signals. So the other day I came in here to try to practice for this session, and when I took it off, when I turned it on and had it fly up just a few feet, I crashed it into that wall and that sign and that wall and that row of seats. And then I said, well, this is just not going to work. So if we want to go outside, I'll show you how to take it off, and then we can even hand you over the remote control, and you guys can play around with it. It has a pretty significantly short battery life. We have 2 different batteries, so we can get a little extra, but it's really, you can only film for about 15 to 20 minutes before the battery goes dead. So you're talking about a real short amount of time to get to where you're going before you can try to film. You can bring it back down, change out the batteries, but you really got about 15 to 20 minutes at a time. But I found that it's got a lot of practical uses for journalists. If you look at the video that we showed, you'll see things like flying it up into the middle of a fireworks display, right? And getting those amazing visuals of the fireworks coming right at the screen. It's pretty great. You can also get some pretty great visuals of anything that you would normally cover with, say, a helicopter, that you would normally try to get some kind of sky cam footage. You could cover theoretically with a drone, whether it's your daily traffic or whether it's, Jackson, a few months ago, the Agricultural Museum burned. One of the buildings in the Agricultural Museum burned. Drone would have been perfect to have been stationed nearby and get to see the scope of the fire. Anything that you're looking to see exactly what is going on from a broad perspective. It's a very niche thing, and it wouldn't be applicable in every situation, but it's really something that in the future we're going to be using, and that we can use right now. There's a few legal restrictions that we're still working out the kinks with, and Deb's going to talk about those a little later. But I want to show you just some raw footage that should be on the desktop. You can just show, campus flight. And this was me on a Saturday morning taking this thing up. And you'll see that it shoots up pretty fast once I get it going. Pardon my unprofessional dress. And this was a windy day. Saturday was very windy also, and so I'm trying to take it up kind of in stages. But you can see the quality of image that you get. And once you get experienced with the controls, you can get a little bit more of a fluid movement. I'm really herky-jerky with it. Yeah. Then we can pan around. We'll see the grove. Aerial view of the grove. Now that's really about 300 feet, I think. I don't think I ever got up anywhere close to 500. That may be about 400 right there. But you really get a sense of the whole campus, and then I kind of flew it over and panned around the football stadium. I'm a 31-year-old guy. When I got it up there, the first thing I wanted to go do was look at the football stadium. And then in just a second, I twist it back around to where you can see the grove. But as you can see, the image quality is really great. Now ours is not quite a GoPro. They make models that have a GoPro that you can attach to, that you can change out the camera. The camera comes off. This camera is mounted to this and it does not come off. With a GoPro, you would get audio as a track, but there's really no use in it since all you can hear is the wind going for 15 minutes. So there's no audio track on this one. This is pretty much all you get. But you can kind of see what the raw footage looks like. If you want to look at the lunch.
Go back to the...
Yeah, there's another one. No, there's another one on desktop. You can close out of that one. I'll go to lunch 1. It's just a real quick. This was just us taking off out here during our lunch break today. You may see a couple of your faces. And I just kind of centered it over. And you'll see what I mean with trying to figure out the remote controls. Now the FAA has been saying that they require there you go, that they require a pilot's license which is an exhaustive process and rather expensive to legally, commercially fly one of these things. My opinion is that anybody that is pretty decent at like Call of Duty on Xbox would be much better equipped to fly one of these things than somebody with a pilot's license, because you're essentially, when you're dealing with this joystick, and Deb, you can go to the Lunch 2 video, when you're dealing with this joystick, the left joystick controls your altitude, up and down controls your altitude, and left and right control the direction that the camera is looking. So if you just hold it down to the left, you'll just spin in circles to the left, okay? Or to the right, etc. This was us out at lunch. And I took it up, and then you can adjust the angle of the camera without changing the altitude with this knob right here. And so I took the angle up to where you could then, and then when you're trying to change this knob will go forward and backward and then move the entire drone to the left and right. So if you're trying to change the altitude up or down, or look to the left or right, you use this knob. And if you're trying to move the entire drone forward, backward, left, or right, you use this knob. So it takes a good bit of coordination and practice to get to where you can move it up and over and spin it around, make it talk, like B.B. King would say. And so then I kind of came back down and focused on, but it's not just for aerials. I tried to take this back down to a level where you could see almost at eye level. And that's where I flipped it up to where you could change the angle on the camera. And that, in an ideal world, you would be much more fluid and not breakneck speed like that. But then I just kind of tried to set it down to where we were just above eye level, and you could see faces, you could see what was going on. And I think I almost hit Susan in the head. And then that was about it. But you could see on there that me punching my smartphone to turn it off. So the reaction time is almost a split second to the end of the video to when I actually punch the button. On the app, and what you do is you download an app from DJI to put on your phone that then you can connect through the wireless of the drone. So what it has is you can see the exact thing that the camera is seeing. And then you have the option to either do a still shot, you can click for a still shot, or do a video. And the video is not, all the stuff that you're recording or shots you're taking is not stored on my phone, because I don't have that much memory left on my phone. But what it does is in the camera, or excuse me, in the drone, there is a micro SD card. And we've got a 32 gig micro SD card. So then when I get finished and I want to start looking at what all I filmed, then I just simply take the micro SD card out, or I hook up the mini USB to the other port on here and just set it on my desk and move them all over to my desktop. And so then I can view all of they come out as MP4 files. And so I can view them all on my desktop. You can edit them, play with them as you would any other video. So,
how much video can you store on the 32?
That's a good question.
And is it 720, 1080?
It's 720. It's 720. It's not quite 1080. If we had a GoPro, it would be 1080, but it's 720. And I would guess that you could store a couple of hours.
Yeah,
On 32 gig is a good bit.
I mean, it depends how.
You would know, yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's a fairly compressed file, so you could definitely shoot. The battery life.
The battery life will get you before, and so like you can keep as much on there as you want. I've shot 5, 6 of these things and haven't had to clean out the memory card or anything. So, but yeah, that's kind of the Meek drone, or I've been calling it Farley, is the nickname that I gave it. So Farley the drone, that's kind of what we've done with it. But you can take these things and you can create something a little more polished from that raw footage. This is a video that Deb is going to click on that goes to a video that one of our IMC students shot during the Dan Jones I Stand With Dan rally a couple of weeks ago. And this is over the circle, and it's set the alma mater in the background. But it just gives you a chance to see hands down with the camera angle, the size of the crowd at the rally, in a perspective that you really can't get on the ground. Just a short clip.
Scott, do you know as Sky Masters, is that the IMC student that?
It is.
Yeah.
That's Jenner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of our students shot that video and has a little side business. Does he do mainly real estate related?
Kind of anything.
Yeah.
He also does a lot of like parties, frat parties and things like that, so.
The uses are really, I mean, anything you can think of. So yeah, you can shoot a frat party. You can also shoot things for realtors. Imagine if you're a realtor and you're trying to move big tracts of land. I was looking at a big tract of land in West Texas, and it was a ranch. It was like 160 acres. And they were trying to explain, well, there's a creek in this quadrant, and then there's this small house that's, X number of yards away. They uploaded a drone video that spanned the entire property and scanned around. It was like a minute and a half. Gave you a much better sense of what you were buying, what you were getting into. So the uses are really still being explored, actually.
And as RJ mentioned, there are some challenges with drones right now. The FAA is regulating drone use. I think he mentioned that their preference is actually that you have a commercial pilot's license in order to use one of these for any kind of commercial purposes. Right now, CNN does have an agreement with the FAA. Some of you may have seen, I'm trying to remember what the breaking story was, or no, it was actually a drought coverage in California. CNN was using some of its own drone footage for that. And Hank Price, who runs a television station in Birmingham, Hank, don't mean to put you on the spot here, but what is it that your lawyers are telling you about using drone footage?
We're not allowed as a news organization to shoot with drones right now, and we would be in a lot of trouble if we did. If footage comes to us from somebody else and it's newsworthy, we can use that. If one of our employees owns a drone and they happen to get news footage, we can use that. But if they're shooting some other kind of footage, we can't use that because that's just really trying to get around the law. The general manager of our Manchester, New Hampshire station had a wonderful piece last week in Broadcasting Cable making the case why this is stupid.
How did that come about? I mean, that an employee can do it you can't use it for news.
Because the employee is a private individual can go out and shoot something. And if they get it for news, it's news footage and we can use it. But if they're shooting something, say for a commercial, we can't use it. It's crazy, but it's the lawyers. And all of that has to be fixed.
Hank, are they worried about the FAA rules there?
Yes.
Or because the state legislatures have kind of gone nuts now?
Mm-hmm.
They
They
have.
had a bill died in here, in Mississippi this year, and I fully expect that to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the FAA. Now, when you think about it, helicopters are going to run at a minimum $450 an hour, more like $750. The Bell Jet Ranger is about $750. You don't want to use the piston helicopters; they're just too dangerous. But if you're going to get a helicopter, the camera and pedestal mounts are about $600,000. The helicopter's $1.5 or $2. So let's say you got $2 million in a helicopter. You got to have a pilot for the helicopter, right? They used to be all former Vietnam pilots who could do a lot of fun things, but they've all died. And so you have insurance, which can be $30,000 a year, and you compare all this to a drone.
$3,000.
$3,000 out of the box.
Yeah, and what if you were going to pay $10,000?
Right, and make it even more.
And make it
useful,
everything.
yeah.
And so it will get solved. It has to get solved. It's in the public's interest.
Amazon.com, you heard a reference earlier to whether or not drones will be delivering your packages to you. Actually, the FAA has kind of relented a little bit in their refusal to work with Amazon, and now have said that Amazon can do a little pilot study to see about drone delivery of your packages. doorstep. Darn, I don't think Oxford is the test market, but wouldn't that be fun? I'm ordering all the time just to see the drone come. And of course, for journalists and for marketers, this raises a lot of ethical concerns, right? You know, RJ was being kind. He didn't zoom in on anybody shoving food in their mouths, but certainly he could have. And he could have, you know, flown the drone over someone's backyard where somebody may choose to do things where they feel they're in the privacy of their own home that they wouldn't want to have recorded with the gyro cam. So it certainly has its challenges right now, but as journalists or potential marketers, we need to be talking about how this technology may affect our jobs and our careers. So I would ask the students in the room or anyone who wants to pose a theory about how could you use a drone in marketing or journalism in a way that we haven't already talked about. Any ideas springing to mind as you were sitting here listening to this or watching this? What could a drone be useful for?
Well, I think for real estate, I mean, which you already mentioned, but that's, you know, that's a big one. The National Association of Realtors can't wait to get out and, you know, start putting this to use. You mentioned deliveries. I know, I think it was Domino's that delivered a couple pieces by a drone in Britain, I believe, a year or so ago, and you know, it got a lot of publicity for them, and good and bad. But you know, so I think, you know, in deliveries and companies like that, FedEx, you know, the military uses a lot of drones already to deliver things, and FedEx could.
Bombs.
Yeah.
Bombs.
And so,
Were you going to mention something?
Domino's.
Domino's, okay.
Now, I've heard like personal, I saw a thing on Twitter, I think, about using drones for like personal delivery. Like, I want you to send this to my neighbor's house, or not neighbor, but
Oh,
someone-
courier, almost like a courier
Yeah.
Yeah,
service,
drops
yeah.
down, instead of driving over to their house to drop off a check, I'll use my drone to carry it. And like, local mail, like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First drone I saw was at the Georgia Dome, and Chick-fil-A had cows loaded in the drone, and they would drop cows with parachutes. Now,
I hope
cows-
these were
They
stuffed
were little
cows.
plush-
Okay, now we're on the same page.
Yeah, little plush cows. They were dropped with parachutes that had coupons with them.
And you said it was in the Georgia Dome.
It was in the Georgia Dome.
That's the interesting thing is
That's
in terms
indoors.
of if it's indoors, the FAA says have at it. So when we were talking about trying to create a class where we would use the drone, I was getting advice from someone who said if you could get athletics to let you in the IPF, you can have all the fun you want with this thing, but you know, start to use it for news coverage and then you're in trouble. Did I see another hand?
Yeah, I mean, I think this would be a pretty good tool to just market our school itself, because we have a pretty gorgeous campus that.
For sure.
Something Brandon just tweeted about was, you know, putting it out there. I think I've seen a video of it already, somebody flew one over to Grove on the other day.
Yeah.
I've seen like
Yeah.
all the videos of the one at the Sigma New House and some others where it just gives you a really great view of, you know.
When I see that video, I'm just like, who would want to go to that party? You can't even. But apparently that's fun when you're 20.
Well, there's several different high schools in Mississippi that have purchased them. I know Pearl has one, Tupelo has one, Jackson Prep, and New Albany, and they use it to cover like football games on Friday nights, you know, to get the crowd and that kind of thing. I had one, I believe it was Pearl, that said that the first couple of times that they flew the drone during the football game, it was a competitive advantage because they had been flying it and getting football practice shots, and so all of their players were used to seeing this little thing above them, but the other team couldn't help but just keep looking up, and so they were distracted, and they would snap the ball and, you know, go for a big play.
So we had grand plans when we first came up with this session is that we were going to get Charlie to let us buy an Apple Watch. But unfortunately, they're not out until tomorrow, so we misplanned the date.
Yep.
But we do want to talk a little bit about wearables as well as drones, because wearables are the second type of communications technology that's going to affect your lives and certainly our lives as educators. So what is a wearable? operated either through a voice command or that you could set and forget, connected to the internet, gets attention without disruption. So that means, you know, if it's the Apple Watch, it buzzes a little bit on your arm to tell you that something is occurring that you need to look at. It's environmentally aware, which most of the time means GPS, that it can tell you or it can locate you in space and locate you here on the Earth, and then open to third-party developers so that there are other potential applications that people will develop that make these tools useful to you. And so the Apple Watch is set to come out tomorrow. Some of you may have seen this video, but I think it's a pretty good overview of what we're getting when it comes to the watch and what it'll look like.
I started my camera. Ran a race most wouldn't dream of starting. Chose to take down a monster.
Right.
And realized
We're
when
not
it's dark enough,
Yeah.
you can see the stars. One bold choice leads to another. Toyota, let's go places.
Apple's got a watch. I've been using it. What does it feel like? Is this something you need? Well, Apple's watch is part of a growing landscape called smartwatches that are in this umbrella of wearable tech. These things are accessories to your phone, and Apple's only works with iPhone 5 or later. So it's going to get messages and other things from your phone, but it also works kind of like a standalone iPod. Apple pushes 3 different types of core functions on the Apple Watch: communications, fitness, and notifications. Now, notifications and glances, which is the other term for these little widget-like apps, are like widgets. Those functions on your iPhone that you get from your pull-down menu right next to your notifications. They're like smarter mini apps that you can check information like sports scores or weather updates or tweets. Now, underneath all that, there are also full apps, and that looks like a grid of iPhone apps, except they're circles, and you launch them. A lot of them are living on your iPhone as well, and they're kind of cross-loading, so they take a little time to load. But you can get some boiled-down, simple functions like looking at tweets and even responding to tweets, and a lot of different fitness apps, including Apple's core apps. Their fitness apps are probably the most advanced on any smartwatch. They work a lot like what you get on a Fitbit or some sort of a Nike Fuel Band. They look at your walking, your running. It has a heart rate monitor built in, and it will work with GPS on your phone, and it does a lot of communication functions. This thing will act as a speakerphone when paired with your iPhone. It will also enable you to send texts, to dictate audio messages, or to send crazy animated emoji. Now, if you find another Apple Watch owner, you can send a little doodle to them like this, or you can send love taps, or hold your fingers here and send your heart rate. And did I mention this thing is basically like an iPod? You can store 2 gigs of music on this that sync over from your phone, and you can listen to them if you have Bluetooth headphones. Kind of like an iPod, except there is no headphone jack here. And it has Apple Pay, so you can pay for things at terminals, even when you're away from your iPhone. The Apple Watch comes in a range of prices, from $350 up to $17,000, but they all do the same thing inside. They all have 8 gigs of internal storage, of which you can access around 6. And you're really paying for the design of the band and the materials. This is a steel one, 42 millimeters, with a white fluoroelastomer band. This is $600. And the one I tried with a stainless steel link band, $1,000. That's crazy expensive. And they go all the way up to $10,000, $17,000 for the gold watch you're not going to get. The Apple Watch is also hindered by its battery life. The battery life lasts no longer than a day. That's lower than most other smartwatches out there. And I like wearing a watch at night, so I really like to be able to use it at night for silent alarms, or to check what the time is, or to do sleep tracking. You can't do that. So who's the Apple Watch for? After wearing one for a while, that's still a good question. I'm not exactly sure, and that's the problem with it. It's an iPhone accessory because you need an iPhone. Its battery life is not great, and it's very expensive. But if you're interested in exploring this, and you want to spend $350 on an entry-level model, it's possibly a toy that could appeal to some people. I'm Scott Stein, CNET.
All right, so in
Sailing through the heart of cities and landscapes with Viking, you'll see things differently. You'll get closer to iconic...
All right, sorry about that. In thinking about this watch and how we need to be considering this as communicators, what's the first big question for us to be asking about this new wearable technology?
How much?
How much? Okay, you're right. I should have, Dr. Huzzy is right. I should have said how much, but we do know how much we could, for $350, really, Charlie, it's not that much. Let's get one.
One for everybody.
We could have one of these, we could play around with it. But what's the big question before it becomes valuable to Hank or to Lane or to Scott or anybody who's trying to use this in the work world? Does anybody have them, right? I mean, technology is only as useful as its rate of adoption, really. So who and how many will buy these? So is it going to be only the early adopters, similar to another wearable product that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes? Who knows what I'm wearing right now? Google Glasses. What's this called? Google Glass. Yeah, no one even knows. I mean, it was Google's, great big invention.
Did Charlie pay for that?
He did pay for that, so that's probably why he doesn't want me to buy a watch. So, who and how many will buy? Because unless this gets widespread adoption, it's not very valuable to us as journalists or as marketers, right? There's no audience there. Why do we invest money in developing tools for it? So, what we're hearing, of course this is coming from Apple, is they're predicting that they will have sold 90 million Apple Watches by the end of 2016. Now, Apple might do it, right? There are about 90 million iPhones sold in the first quarter, or the last quarter of 2014. So this could be possible. They definitely know how to market. Again, it could end up being like Google Glass, too. So that puts people in journalism and communications in kind of a bind in trying to answer the second question, which is what kind of content will work? So think about that device. Think about what you just saw and give me some thoughts about what kind of content will work on this.
I actually just read an article about this I think yesterday or the day before, that was about how some news organizations are developing, they said one-sentence stories and headline. That's, that they can string, you can string through.
Absolutely. Talk about one of the quotes that I loved was, it's going to make Twitter seem like long-form journalism. So that's a little scary. Lane?
The New York Times, I believe, in the article he's referencing, was a much kinder review than what CNN just showed you. But the guy who wrote the article seems to think that it's going to disconnect a lot of folks from their phone. So I think if Apple's successful, and you should never underestimate Apple, that in a couple of years, wearables are going to be defining what conferences like this are about.
Well, and I actually, not to put you on the spot again, but when you were talking about, in his session, he described a world in which we are ourselves always environmentally aware, connected to the internet and hands-free, that we don't need any device because our DNA is registered and we operate through the world on the web without any digital device with us at all. So I think that's true. What about from a marketing standpoint? How could this be used from journalism? We know whatever we produce needs to be really short form. As marketers, what would be useful to come to you on a watch?
I would say with near-field communication, when you walk around the pitch, you get breakfast notification, T-shirts on sale.
Exactly, the coupon that as you were, well, I wasn't going to go in, Ann Taylor, but okay, now I will, just got 20% off. What do you think? Are you going to run out and purchase one of these? I'm interested. We have a little mini focus group here. We've got some folks who are in the business of getting content to you. Are you going to buy one? What would it take to get you to buy one? Yeah.
I think the functionality
Except hers is in a big dorky box.
So enough off the larger phone so that I can see a larger screen. So I don't know. All right, well, you all are talking about the things, the challenges of this, and we've also talked a little bit about the opportunities. USA Today, sorry Fred's not here to talk a little bit about this, but they've been working with Android Wear to essentially create what they call glanceable content. I like that term. So they're saying what they're finding is that it has to be relevant, obviously, glanceable and personal. So it has to be something that you can consume with nothing more than a glance. And how might that affect us as journalists and marketers? I saw a lot of talk from advertisers that, this is never going to work, but advertisers also said Twitter would never be a way to advertise. So, Vine would never be a way to advertise. So what we find, I think, is if the audience gets there, somebody's going to figure out a way to get content that's useful to people to that device. So Google Glass, we've been kind of making jokes about it, but for at least a couple years, there were plenty of people believing that this was going to be the device of the future. And we got a chance to experiment with Google Glass here in school. Students took various approaches to telling stories, and this is one of my favorites that was produced in terms of a good application of the device. So I want to share it with you, and then we can talk a little bit more.
Sam Kendricks is considered to be one of the premier pole vaulters in the world. Kendricks recently decided to leave Ole Miss athletics to pursue a professional career in pole vaulting.
Travel the world, compete at the highest levels against these guys I know I can compete against, and compete for my country, perhaps at the World Championships in 2015.
What's it like to fly 19 feet in the air? We put Google Glass on Kendricks to show you what it looks like from his perspective. Now let's slow it down.
With its practice.
All right, so that was the relevant part of the story. I like that because I think it did take advantage of one of the unique characteristics of Google Glass. And there was a lot of talk about, how great it would be to be able to put Google Glass on somebody, a famous artist who's working in pottery, and watch that person actually create artwork from a first-person point of view. And it still does have value from that, but as you see, PC Magazine late last year basically said, "Rest in peace, Google Glass, you're gone." So why do you think that Google Glass never actually made it as a useful tool for people? Why? And I'm giving you a hint right now.
Well, I think it's important with technology that's coming out to think about how people would perceive it. And as soon as it becomes something that you wear or that is attached to your body, it becomes part of your image. So a lot of it depends if it's consistent with how you want to present yourself to others.
Right.
And so I think that that's a big part of it, because Apple itself was launched as 1,000 songs in your pocket and more of a fashion type thing to have versus really the functionality of it.
Okay. Okay, Glass. Take a photo. Okay, Glass. Take a picture. All right, I just captured you. Now I'm going to send you to Facebook right now. But what you're seeing here is you're seeing that even though it's hands-free, always on, connects with all my devices, I still have to kind of make myself a walking invasion of privacy to be able to use it. So it was never this kind of seamless integration into your life that the eventual wearable technology that becomes a hit, I think personally will end up that way. Were you going to say something?
Absolutely. No, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Why else do you think Google Glass didn't make it? Or, I mean, it's possible it could come back in some other iteration, but...
Well, when I tried it, the interface was
In what way? What would you?
Well, you're kind of looking at something that's on the corner of your eye. It's not a natural way to look at something. It's not intrusive to your line of sight. I think that's why it was designed that way. But you kind of have to get used to looking straight ahead or interacting with people and then kind of looking to the corner of your eye to see what's going on. Then you're touching things up here, you're saying things out loud, vocalizing commands. So it's an awkward, clunky way to walk around, and you begin to feel like a robot. Like it's controlling you almost. And so people are looking at me kind of crazy on the bus, and I got big things going on. I already look kind of nerdy. In a sense, but.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah, it just seems like the only practical usage of it is that camera thing. I remember anytime I'd see an article about, third parties that develop the applications for it, people weren't really interested, people didn't really care. None of them people seem to be for it.
Yeah, you're going to be able to read your email. I mean, you can read your email on it. You can use Google Translation, if you're traveling and you're in France and you can't speak French, So there are applications for it. But ultimately, I think the pros of Google Glass were it was hands-free. So if you did want to put it on Bo Wallace and show him how he interacts with other players in practice, that could be an interesting video to view. Always on, unique perspectives, basically. A good camera for a surprisingly small device and good video capabilities. But the cons were, privacy, other people's view of whether you were invading their privacy. Interruptions. I know one time I had my phone off, but I had glass with me, and I had forgotten to turn off my Bluetooth. So my phone was ringing, and I'm like trying to figure out, and it's like, oh, actually Google Glass is ringing. The mic quality is poor. Battery life, that was also an issue with the drone. Voice recognition was not great. But the big thing is, it was never widely adopted, and there was no killer app. Nothing that we've just talked about couldn't be done with another device and potentially better than this device. So now I've really sold this to you, right? That I'm sure everybody will want to play with this dead technology. But I think it is a useful lesson to say that this is the risk that Hank was talking about, those of you who may have been in his session. Innovation does not come without risk, and news organizations, marketers, big media companies do have to take some risks. You do have to play around and buy the watch. And Fred Anklin was talking about they do App Mondays and Social Media Tuesdays, where they play around with the latest apps or the newest social media tools. And that's what, especially for our students in the room, constantly making sure that you're staying on top of new technologies and how they might apply. I know a lot of times you guys are all over the new technologies, but I'm not sure that you're making that next leap to figuring out, well, how can I use this as a tool in my work? So we do want to let you go out and play either with Google Glass or both and fly the drone. But before we leave, I'd like to ask Scott Feeney just to say a couple words.
And actually, those couple of words, I think, are just thank you. It's been a good day. We've heard from a lot of good speakers, and hopefully all of you have had a chance to learn something today and become intrigued with something, curious about something. That's what this is all about, to highlight, innovative things going on in the world of media and marketing. So that's all I've got. So thanks again for being here. Really appreciate it, and I hope you can all join us outside here where we can get a chance to fly the drone and try on the glasses and other things. So thanks very much.
Thank you.